The word scared in the title is uh, akin to fear, but usually it has slight difference. The word fear is more non-specific. Scared is situational, that you are caught in a sudden situation. There is that suddenness associated with the word getting scared, that suddenly you face something and you are scared, like somebody suddenly you saw pointing gun at you, then it is a scare. You get scared by that. So that is why this word is used. But actually, otherwise, after this initial moment, one can say fear and scared. Getting or of being afraid or getting scared are not very different feelings. Maybe there is a variation in intensity. In earlier literatures, in the olden dictionary, you will find the word getting scared was not as much used. But as it happens with language, one starts using stronger and stronger expressions for actually not such strong experience. Then you start using such words for even the feelings which are not really that strong. So that is why the word scared is used more often than probably it should be used. The life of human beings is all full of fear. We are all afraid of something. Every minute there is something that may happen, something that will take away my certain things, and everything that we collect in this world or run after in this world, they are smeared with fear, or one of their elements is fear. In some people it becomes very prominent, in some it is not so prominent. But there is the fear in everybody's life. An ancient poet in Sanskrit his name was Bhartrhari, and he has written three short treatises. One of them, the first one, is called Shringara Shataka, which means the 100 verses on romanticism and enjoyment. 100, then next is the 100 verses on cultivating moral life, moral virtues. And remaining, the last 100 ones were composed, they were called Vairagya Shatakam, which means that 100 verses on renunciation or dispassion. So, one of these verses, it describes that how everything in this world that one seeks for, it is combined or mixed with fear. And it goes like this. भोगे रोग भयं कुले च्युति भयं वित्ते नृपालाद् भयं माने दैन्य भयं बले रिपु भयं रूपे जराया भयं शास्त्रे वादि भयं गुणे खल भयं काये कृतान्ताद् भयं सर्वं वस्तु भयान्वितं भुवि नृणां वैराग्यमेवाभयम्. In enjoyment, there is the fear of disease. In social position, the fear of falling off. In wealth, the fear of hostile kings. In honor, the fear of humiliation. In power, the fear of foemen. In beauty, the fear of old age. In scriptural erudition, the fear of opponents. In virtue, the fear of traducers. In body, the fear of death. All things of this world pertaining to people are attended with fear. Renunciation alone stands for fearlessness. So, fear is around us all, and the fear is of two types. One is the fear in the world that we experience, that, oh, my money will be gone, or as has been explained here, my honor will be gone, my position in society will be gone, I may get defeated in election and so my governorship may be gone, and so many fears. Fear from friends that who knows when will they become foes. Fear from foes is of course there, but even fear from friends, fear from relations near and dear, how long will they stand with me, and so forth. There is the fear associated with everything, the fear that it may not work, it may give problems, fear that ultimately I will be a victim of all these things. So, all things in the world are full of fear, and that we see when we are dealing with many people, many things, and thus human beings, they are always in a way state of being scared. What will happen if I go to some other place? I do not know anybody there. What will happen if somebody attacks me? One person, she read actually about some robbery in the neighborhood, and just lost sleep because of fear that what may happen, that robber can strike our home also. It is so, this fear is part of human life, and some people are able to push it aside. But even if they push it aside, it is there, that it is not right now near them, but they have the feeling that there are the impending things. There is the fear of poverty. We know that I don't have things. Actually, when you don't have things, there isn't much fear. That is why it is said that the vairagyam, the dispassion, is the source of no fear. It is, you become free of fear. But when you have things around, then there is the fear of those being taken away. You may not be having them with you next moment. They will come and go. So this fear is with all people to less extent, less or more extent. The quantity and intensity may be more or less. But there is another type of fear which one is really not aware of in most cases, and that fear really gives us this relative fear that we are familiar with. I gave the examples of familiar fear. And what is the deeper or more intense, or let us say more pervasive fear, and it being pervasive, we are not aware of it. That fear is like things which are pervasive everywhere, all around us, and we are not aware of this space. Because everything is, we are in the space, space is all around us. So, when we call a room empty, because not that there is no space in it, empty, means there is space, but we do not talk about space as a thing. And so, everything that is like this, all pervasive, it is not taken into account, or we are not actively dealing with it. So, this fear is of that type for most people till one becomes aware of it. To give another example, it could be thought, suppose you are deep in the ocean, no shore near anywhere, and you have fallen there somehow, and now you have two fears. One is the fear of some fish attacking you, somebody inside the sea attacking you, and you are busy dealing with that. From all sides, you are seeing that these things are coming and attacking me. And because of this being busy with this, busy being occupied with this fear of things in the ocean, one becomes oblivious of the fear of being in the ocean itself. That the ocean is there, how am I going to survive this ocean? And that is when one becomes aware of that fear, it is the spiritually awakening that happens. Oh my goodness, even though I may get rid of all these creatures around me which are really scary, but even then I will not be free from fear, because this ocean of world is there and I am drowning in that ocean. At some point one becomes aware of this all-pervasive fear. You feel there that there is no escape. You could deal with sharks in the sea, okay. You may deal with the other enemies around, fine, but now where do I go? There is no way to go. I am surrounded by this unfathomable, apparently shoreless sea. How to cross over? It is a very really scary feeling when that awakening comes, and it is really the spiritual awakening that I am now trapped in this sea of, as it is described in some Vedantic scriptures, sea of transmigration. I have no escape here. It is even if I get some enjoyment here, yeah, still I am caught. You know this, that in Mahabharata there is that famous story of enjoyment in this world. How is our enjoyment in this world? A man being chased by a mighty elephant sees, while running, sees that there is a deep well and a rope is going down there. So to avoid, the elephant catches that rope and starts going down. And going halfway, as he was holding the rope, he sees that at the bottom of that almost dry well, there are two big snakes. Oh my goodness, cannot go down further, cannot climb up, because that by that time that elephant is right standing there. And then as he was holding somehow to that rope, and saw while he is holding on to that rope, two mice started biting on that rope itself, Now, what is to be done? And at that time, what happened was, there was a honeycomb on that tree that was growing there, and a few drops of honey fell on his nose and were coming into his mouth, and he licked them. joy, you say. So that is how the situation that we actually have. And those drops of honey make us forget that what situation we are caught in this world. And when one becomes aware of that situation, then the intense effort for liberation begins. Intense effort. And you want to get liberated because you are now seeing the situation. Unless we see the bondage, there is no effort of freedom, no effort to get liberation really starts. When you know that you are bound, then you start looking for the ways to become free. And one soon knows that it is difficult. I don't see any way how to get liberated in this. I want liberation. This life is just ebbing away, going away. In the example that I had given, that two mice were cutting that rope, that the two mice were day and night, the time, the time is passing away. It is the rope of life that I am holding on to is not going to last. This awakening comes that everything is going to be vanished soon. Now that feeling, intense feeling comes that how to get out of this terrible, terrible situation, friends. It is till then we feel the things in my life, there are not much problem, It is just a few fixings will be enough. Right now I don't have a very good job. And so I am looking at various options, and I will find something that can be taken care of, and nothing much. Financial difficulties, okay, yeah, it is. I am cutting down on my expenses, and I am buying a few lottery tickets. Hopefully, I'll win some of them, and then that way you feel that okay, that can be dealt with. There are problems, that okay, this neighborhood that I am living, there are too many people causing disturbance. Well, maybe I'll go to some other place to live, that will take care of it. So the little few fixings here and there will be enough. Yeah, I have problem with my spouse, but okay, we will talk about it. Maybe we will go to some counselor and the things will be all right soon. These things happen from time to time, no problem. It will be taken care of. So we are not aware of the problem, which is much deeper and much vaster too, more pervasive, that we are caught in this bondage of transmigration, the bondage that the life is going away, and also we are not aware as to who am I, what is this meaning of birth, where am I going. All around it appears to be darkness. The awareness that we get that everything is passing away, it is somewhat difficult to deal with. It is true that most of us do not get this awareness at all as subjective feeling. And we see the death of others and then feel, oh, after all, that is the law of life, this thing, people who are born have to die one day or the other. And anyway, that person was quite old and good that passed away, is escaped the further sufferings, or whatever. We may sometimes shed tears that, oh, that young person had an untimely death, so we shed more tears, oh, it shouldn't have happened like that. But my own death, I am blissfully, or whatever you may say, unaware of. And when one becomes aware of that, the feeling is that of really a scary situation that we land in. Yes, that is happening. And when that will happen, nobody knows. When shall I die? That is sure, but the uncertainty adds to the feeling that, okay, maybe after 25 years, who knows? It will take 25 years or it may come tomorrow. There is no guarantee of that. It is, well, I am quite healthy and so forth, you may tell yourself. But suddenly some disease creeps in without giving any warning, and then the person dies. It is so many cases we read about that a person was at a doctor was at the conference of the heart cardiologist conference, a doctor, and in the conference itself got a heart attack and died. You never know. Here in Rhode Island, right at Providence, not too long ago, about I think 6-7 years ago, a tragic news that the man was just alighted at the airport, knowing that his father is admitted in the hospital and may not survive. So he took an urgent flight and came and took a rental car and was driving and met a car accident on the way and died there. Now, nobody plans for such things. Now it is so, you don't know when will the death catch you. When that awareness really comes, then you see that there is no escape. And what should I now do? This becomes a prominent question. Then one starts intensely looking for the means of escape, starts looking for somebody who can help. We read the spiritual books, and certainly it is good, it may inspire someday that kind of yearning to get liberated. But till the yearning is strong, much efforts are not put in. The efforts are kind of formal. That formal means, okay, I should meditate for a little while, I should attend some scriptural classes, I should pay more attention to the spiritual thing. But in such a way that it doesn't really make that dent. That's as long as that yearning doesn't present itself. It is like when you are driving, then your level of gas is going down. Now you see that, well, here it is costly. Maybe the next gas station will bring cheap gas. And then you keep on driving till now the level is, you see the red light. Now you are frantically looking for gas station. Now the price is not the question at all. The next available gas station you are going to fill, and suppose you see that there is no gas station nearby, then the yearning starts increasing, that you stop and ask people, hey, is there a gas station nearby? It's like that. It is scary. I have experienced these moments that, okay, there is, but till that time the yearning doesn't come. Okay, will happen later on. Okay, let's see some other time. It is so till we feel really the spiritual hunger, means how to get rid of this bondage. the efforts do not actually start in right earnest. Sri Ramakrishna, when he was doing the worship of Mother Kali in the Dakshineshwar, that temple, he and then he got the feeling, is this real? Can I see Mother Kali? Can I get the vision of God? And that yearning started increasing in leaps and bounds. That is the reality he started seeing, that yes, and how can I get the vision of this divine mother? And that occupied his whole life. The yearning, he said, was so intense that it is like a wet towel. If you wrench that, he said, my heart was getting wrenched in that way. It was so intense a yearning. And so that is how then the whole life was revolving around it. Not that this is just a disciplined life, that okay, from this hour to this hour I have to do meditation. It is good than not doing, but it is a formal thing, and not out of the intense yearning. In intense yearning, the whole life was just circulating around this one and only thing important in life. Nothing else was seen as important at all, only to realize the divine. So that is when you start looking for the means with earnestness. A beautiful treatise in Vedanta by Shankaracharya, Viveka Chudamani, describes this intense yearning on the part of the disciple, that this disciple is trying to lead a controlled life. It automatically, when the two things feed into each other, when there is a yearning, maybe a very mild yearning, it reduces your propensity to sensual pleasures and taking comfort in that kind of living. So, you start leading a controlled life, a life that is prescribed in the scriptures. Start, paying more attention to cultivate many of those virtues which the saints have adored or which the saints have prescribed. So, is leading that kind of life. And while that was happening, the yearning also was increasing because of that. And as the yearning came to a point, this person started looking for someone who can guide me. And it is a very thirsty person. At that, when the thirst increases to a level, I gave the example of gas level in the car. Think of the being the throat getting parched because of the thirst, no water available, nothing. So as the time passes, it keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing. So that with that kind of feeling, as it is described, it is sees a person who is reputed as a teacher in spiritual life, and to such a teacher, he goes there who is thirsting for liberation. The book describes that how is this student who is thirsting for liberation has sought the protection of the teacher and who abides by scriptural injunctions, and who has a calm mind and a serene heart. Then the master uh, gives out the knowledge of the truth with utmost kindness. This approach to the teacher, Sri Ramakrishna used to describe that one gentleman was just standing at a junction in the road, and somebody came and asked, well, this road goes to this place or this other one? This man didn't reply. This second time the question was repeated. This man again didn't reply. Then this man said, oh, and started walking on one of the two possibilities. So then this man calls, hey, please come. What did you say, where you want to go? I want to go there at this place. Okay, this is the road that goes there. Mr. Sir, why did you not tell it when I asked you for first time? I didn't think you really want to know. I thought that you are just trying to engage me in conversation. So I was not talking. Now I see that you have started to go. So I know that you really want to go. I saw that desire on your face that you really want to go. So I have told that to you. So that is what the teachers, they look for. That if is the student right? Is the student really desirous of this or not? That there is that in Kathopanishad, the disciple is being tested. That the disciple is young boy, and this young boy asks, I am not going into the details of the story, but asks the Lord of Death this boon. He has been granted 3 boons, and he had first 2 boons have been exhausted, and the third boon is being now used to get the knowledge of the self. And when this boy asked this question, the Lord of Death said, well, that is too difficult, even those learned devas and others, they also found it too difficult. Why not ask something else? I will give you some hints to make a choice. I can make you the Lord of the whole universe. I can give you as much enjoyment as you want. This whole universe, all the 3 worlds filled with wealth will be there for your enjoyment, and you will have never-ending youth that you want. This all I can give you. Do you want it? Take these instead of asking that useless question about what remains after the death. Do not ask those questions. They are very difficult. But this disciple remained firm that all these things that you are showing me, they never can satisfy a person. In fact, they take our own energy, and we feel that we are enjoying the world. It is like the dog just putting the bone in the mouth and chewing on the bone. It thinks that yes, now the bone has no nutrition at all. Nothing is being gotten out of the bone. The dog's own saliva is going down, that's all. But the dog is feeling enjoyment. So it is like that we are trying to grab things and get the enjoyment out of it. So this little boy says that all the enjoyment that you speak of, they just weaken my power and nothing else. It doesn't give you any enjoyment. So I don't want all those things that you are promising. I want only what I asked. And then the Lord of Death becomes very happy, very pleased with this young boy, saying that, well, only such who can withstand these temptations are worthy of getting this knowledge. And so I am happy to grant it to you. So, and when you have that urgency, you approach the teacher with that humility. It is, you know that it is your need. So you don't say, hey, give me knowledge. It is all humility, because you see that is the only way you can be saved, not arrogance. It is mentioned in the scriptures of all different religions that a disciple therefore approaches. There is a way of approach uh, that you really are seeking it. So with utmost respect and humility, you present your request. That humility becomes actually a big tool in acquiring this knowledge. And then that to that such a student, it describes that to such a student the teacher is now replying with utmost kindness. And the Sanskrit wordings are like this: Ma bhaishta vidvan tava nastyapayah संसार सिन्धोस्तरणेस्त्युपायः येनैव याता यतयोऽस्य पारं तमेव मार्गं तव निर्दिशामि. That there is, don't get scared. Do not be afraid. Fear not, O learned one. There is no danger for you. Tava nasti apayah. There is no danger for you. And because there is the way to cross this ocean of relative existence, or ocean of transmigration, or ocean of sufferings, whatever you may call, there is a way to cross over this. I shall instruct you in the very path by which the seers, so many seers, have reached the beyond. It is not a new path. That itself removes the fear to a great extent, and that it is, you are being put on a chartered path, the path that is well known, being used by so many seers and sages in the past. That very path I will be showing you. So, not that you are an explorer in the sea and finding the path. No, that path is already there, and it has been traversed by so many people in the past. I am going to tell you that very path. And this is there is this supreme means by which you can put an end to the fear of relative existence. By that you will cross the sea of samsara. And this samsara is a beautiful word in Sanskrit. What it means is, it keeps on going and going and going. And that is another bondage. I don't know, some of you must have seen that movie. It is the Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. It is just repeating the same thing. You are in the cycle of that repetition, and that every morning you are doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that alarm rings, you get up, okay, brush the teeth, and then get ready. Always late, it is hurrying, run. And this is come back, do the same thing, watch TV for a little while, and it is the same routine, more or less same routine that goes on in our life. This is called samsara. That is, you are caught in this bondage. So this is, it is said that with this you will attain a liberation from this samsara and attain to the bliss supreme. And this is the another important concept, that why we are in bondage. We see that the source of happiness somewhere else in some other object, and so keep on chasing them. And what happens is, every ounce of pleasure that we get from anything, any person, or any object, to that extent we become slave to it. We get bound by that. If you observe how the pleasure keeps on binding us, it is, you can easily see this. Any little pleasure maybe, you will be a little bound by that object. So, therefore, important thing is why it happens, because you are going in the wrong direction, in the reverse direction. The source of happiness is here, and we are going there to catch it. Thus, we get caught in it. It is a reaction that we have to face. So, therefore, this person says that the bliss absolute, you will not need to get bliss from anything. And just as the ocean doesn't have to look for a bathing tub. Can you have that where can I take a bath? The ocean doesn't have to think like that. And so it is itself the source of water. So therefore, you become bliss yourself. Imagine, that becoming bliss yourself, what a great thing it is. That when you see that you are bliss, immediately the slavery stops. You know that you impart bliss to other things. Nothing can give you any happiness at all. Whosoever that person may be, whatsoever that object may be, nothing is capable of putting any bliss in me because I am bliss. So, this is the absolute bliss, bliss supreme as it is worded here. So, it is, otherwise it is a life full of fear, as Shakespeare puts it in that play, Twelfth Night, that what we do, applying fear to hopes and hopes to fears. That is otherwise the nature of our life. We hope, and then our hopes are in fears, and when we are actually afraid, we apply hope there. So it is like this, it goes on. But when you get this understanding of this underlying, deep, all-pervading source of fear, then you want to get liberated from that. And then the teacher tells you, the guru or the teacher tells, be not scared. In Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi's teachings, you will find that there is this statement. There are other statements also pertaining to do not feel scared. There is a mother for you. Always remember that there is, whenever you are in distress, just say to yourself, I have a mother. And see how much solace it brings to our life. Yes, I have a mother, a spiritual mother, who will not let me get drowned in this ocean of transmigration. So this even you can, this is a good analogy. I used to feel this, and of course I don't think anybody who have this opportunity will disagree with me that it is when I would see my mother, the fear would vanish as a child. Yeah, unless I have done some mischief, that is a, a different situation. That seeing mother will then I will feel afraid. But it is otherwise in any difficult situation, lost in the crowd. It used to happen many times that getting lost in the crowd, and then the parents are not seen anywhere and looking for that, and if the first this thing would be fear, I'm gone, what am I going to do now? And when somehow you sight, hey, here is my mother, all fear goes away. You rush towards your mother and feel that yes, now I have nothing to fear. So, Holy Mother, even without saying these by exactly these words all the time, would always give this fearlessness to the devotees, disciples approaching her, and their life would be thus reassuring effect would be there, and they would then continue on their path with this consolation. So, this is the message on today's Mother's Day. Let us take this message in our heart that yes, I have a mother, and that will not let us feel scared in any situation in the world. It will bring the life of Holy Mother to us and make us focused on the true purpose of life. Any questions about today's discussion? Yes.
You said that you gave the example of Sri Ramakrishna, how his intensity started increasing as he was in the temple worshipping. What was the fear involved there?
Yeah. The fear, Sri Ramakrishna has described the fear related to these things, that, well, he would see that in this world around I will get drowned. I will not be, there is nothing that can save me. He would see his relatives coming at that time or meeting as the deep wells that can just follow him. The other worldly people would be seen as cobras and crocodiles. So that was his perception that this world is this kind of a place. So therefore, getting out of it becomes the priority in life. Yes, Charles?
You have said in the past not to get depressed. If you're not at the point yet where you can actually see the way out, how do you not get depressed?
Well, you may get depressed, but depression is of two types. It is true that a depression about not getting the things in the world, it is going in the wrong direction. That you do not have a spiritual yearning, but just because you are not getting things in the world, I am not getting enough recognition, I have not getting enough friends, and such things, that may depress a person. That depression is what it is referred to as don't get depressed, be satisfied with what you are. But this spiritual depression, please do not just get understand me wrong. Don't get me wrong that it is spiritual depression means you see that there is no hope to come out of this bondage and you start looking for it with great yearning. It is not making you immobile. It is making you dynamically search for the solution. So that feeling, probably the depression is not the word for it. It is therefore yearning. So, because depression has so many different things attached to it, especially in this age of lot of psychology and psychotherapy going on. So depression has a particular connotation. Those buttons get pressed when you use the word depression. You start seeing many suicides and all that. So that is not what is meant here. It is a spiritual dynamism gets aroused in the person. It is the depression here only means that we used to like have a water tank fed by a pump, and then there was an indicator whether the water level, if it is not gone down, we wouldn't start the pump. And then when it is gone down, depression, but that depression means not but to go and start the pump, you see. So it is a dynamic sense of not having things and therefore doing something to have it. So that is what is meant here by depression. Feeling of the emptiness and the desire to do something to get rid of it. Yeah, thank you. Yes, John? Yeah. That is not fearful. Yeah, it is when you can do like that, that see that everybody in the whole world, God is filled. When one can see that, then the fear goes away in the spiritual sense. But to see that, we have to go through this situation of fear. So the advice of teacher has to be taken in that given context. It was told in the context, about getting peace. It was her last advice, and there she first says, which is a very important statement, and in that context you have to understand the statement that you made. That statement is, do not find faults of others. If you want peace, my child, then do not see the faults of the others. Faults of others are not to be seen. And she continues, see the faults of yourself. And then the next sentence is this, no one is a stranger. And try to make the world your own, because fault finding happens with others. That fellow has fault. We never see I as full of faults. It is the correction has to be brought in others' behavior, not my behavior. After all, I am Swami, what correction. So it is that arrogance will make me see faults in everybody else, that our Mike has these faults and this has these faults and this has these faults. So I am taking upon myself another unpaid job of seeing the faults of the others. And that destroys the peace of mind. But if you start seeing that whole world is my own, nobody is stranger, then it will be a different thing. You will not be able to find fault because it is all your own. So that is the idea there. It is in this context. So we will have Arati. Yes, please.
What is the source of this pervasive feeling? What is the cause
ignorance. Therefore, knowledge is its solution. Ignorance is the cause of this pervasive fear that you see I and the world as separate. Seeing I, and immediately there is this world, there is this divide, and then this world is, as it were, is pouncing upon you, and therefore that is the source of this pervasive fear. As long as you see other, there is no escape therefore from this fear, as it is told in Taittiriya Upanishad and many other places, that even if you are seeing any slightest difference between you and other, there is no possibility of removal of fear. They may be, you may think they are all my friends, but still fear is there. It is, fear goes only when this knowledge comes that there is no I, so who is going to be afraid of what? So then, therefore this ignorance is the cause of that pervasive fear.